After taking a little break from the garden this winter, it felt really nice to slowly get back into the swing of things and get started with planning and planting. As you can see, my garden looks pretty green and most of that is weeds, but I did clean up this first bed before I planted a bunch of peas and favas in here. And now I'm going to continue this bed in the part that I covered with plastic. And we're going to plant some more beets. My fall beets that I planted back in September. Not really doing much. I didn't read the whole name of this spinach. I thought gigante, oh that's good. But then the inverno, which is giant winter spinach. And it says that you should sow it in the fall. I'm gonna try some for now anyway, just to see if it does anything. But for now, the main crop that we're gonna sow is these beets. At the end of January, I started a large portion of my summer vegetables. If you'd like to know more about what I planted, you can watch the video linked here in the corner. Unsurprisingly, the spinach I planted here didn't do much, so this is your reminder to read the package at least a little more than I did. Something that did, however, grow really well was my fava beans. I planted these back in October and they've done amazingly. They definitely needed some support by February, so I decided to use some simple poles and twine. In general, I prefer to grow in the ground without any raised beds, but because space is limited in the greenhouse, I want to use it as efficiently as possible. Last year I was only able to plant one row here in the middle, but by making this section raised, it should be possible to plant 2 nice rows. I definitely should have strung a string here to put in the poles properly, but I didn't, so here we are.
Out there in the open, just a wishing and a hoping. I could smell the pines when I let you in the doorway. Took the seat next to mine like you've been there before. I'm befriended and in loose I could never stand loose. I get by when you're at my side. I'm befriended.
Spring planting starts slow, a few seeds here and there, potting on when needed, and then in April everything accelerates and the beds need to be prepped and the plants need to go out. It was cold until quite late this year, putting the planting on hold.
At the end of my bed, in the palm tree lightning. It was nothing you did, I just felt my love lightning. Now we talk all the time, it's a little one-sided. Always one step ahead, and I'm running behind you. I'm befriended and in a loose I could never stand loose. I get by when you're at my side. I'm befriended.
At the beginning of April, it was finally time to start pumpkins and cucumbers for outside. You can also direct sow these, but since the beds weren't ready yet and I wanted to get them going, I started some in pots, with the help of Puck, of course.
Dat is komkommers. Hé, je had de potjes.
Maakt het tunnel.
Just to gamble, I also direct seeded some more pumpkins in some in-ground compost pits I made over the winter. I layered a lot of chicken bedding with kitchen scraps and I'm hoping this will finally be the year I'm successful at growing lots of pumpkins. This was just a bit of a gamble though, because we still had some unusually cold nights coming up. But I figured those other pumpkins could be backup if these didn't survive. I'm slowly wrapping my head around what no-till would look like for us. This winter I've watched some content that made it much more clear to me how we can implement cover cropping as opposed to dumping a bunch of compost, and what the different steps would be. But since it does require a little bit more planning, for this summer we're just going with what we know and tilling our beds and adding composted horse manure. After trimming the whole area, Maarten also helped me to till the beds. This year I wanted to make some more sturdy and permanent trellises for my various climbing plants. I had meant to make a trellis for these peas all winter but never got around to it. This afternoon we did make the first trellis, just with some old tomato stakes and some screws. In the end I decided these peas were almost done anyway, and I used the trellis for the first cucumbers I planted out a few days later. Usually by this time of year the night temperatures are consistently over 10 degrees Celsius and I can plant out my tomatoes, but not this year. Temperatures day and night have been all over the place this spring, going from cold nights to warm nights then back down again. This makes gardening much more challenging and the plants I started early a little stressed to say the least. Even though there was no consistency in the forecast and planting out was thus a little bit of a gamble, by the last week of April I decided it was time to plant out the first things. My early tomatoes were going yellow from the stress, so they couldn't wait any longer. By this time I also planted more beets and direct seeded some green beans, as well as planted a lot of flowers, courgettes and cucumbers. I have been so impressed by these fava beans this spring. They've grown amazingly, as you can see, and honestly got a bit out of control. Even after doubling the string, the wind proved to be too strong and they've started flopping over the path. But they are very productive either way, and I'm very happy to be eating out of the garden again after a few slim months.
Ik heb er één.
Groter zijn dan ik. Die pissen.
Ja, het is een vruchtbaar stukje. Dus.
Ja, de uien die doen het niet zo. Due to all the late cold, my garden is still not fully planted. I still have peppers and aubergines to go out, as well as more cucumbers and tomatoes. Everything still needs to be mulched and more trellising needs to be built. But I am excited for this summer. I think it will be a great one. I'm hoping to post more these upcoming months. We have some fun stuff planned. If you don't want to miss anything, don't forget to subscribe or join my Patreon. And we'll see you again soon.